I want to show you how the resurrection is so practical for our times of suffering and sorrow. Whenever Jesus called Mary's name, she knew immediately it was him. When he said, Mary, she knew immediately that's Jesus. And her sorrow turned to joy. Why did she get so happy when she heard Jesus' voice, when she knew that he was alive? Was because if Jesus is alive, and she knew this, if Jesus is alive, if he rose from the grave, this changes everything. This changes everything. Now, there are many wonderful implications of the resurrection. What does the resurrection mean for us? There's so many implications, and that's why you can preach so many different sermons on the Easter story. Because Jesus rose from the grave, it means that he's God. I mean, here's a guy who says he's God. Anybody can say they're God, but he says he's God. Then he says, I'm going to die and rise from the grave on the third day, and he did it. Because he rose from the grave, we know that he's trustworthy. We can trust everything he says now because he said he was going to rise from the grave, and he did. We know that he can save us from sin. Listen, if he can rise from the grave, then surely he can save our sins. And we know that he's worthy of worship. Because he rose from the grave, he is worthy of our worship. He's King of kings and Lord of lords. He's worthy of our devotion, our obedience. But one of the most practical aspects and implications of the resurrection for our daily lives and in the different types of suffering and sorrow that we experience is that if Christ rose from the grave, then that means he is powerful enough to help me with what I'm going through. If he's able to conquer death and he's alive today, then that means he can help me with whatever I'm facing. Not only that, but if he can conquer the grave, then that means there's nothing I will ever go through that's too big for Christ to help me with. Some skeptics will ask, how can you believe that God created the universe from nothing? How can you believe that God parted the Red Sea? How can you believe that Jesus did all those miracles, making the blind see, healing the lepers, feeding 5,000 people with just a few loaves of bread and fish? How can you believe all that stuff? Well, because Jesus rose from the grave. And if he rose from the grave, he can do anything. He can do anything. And so believe that Jesus is alive. Remember that he's alive.